Estland nämndes flera gånger igår och det har vi hörsammat. So we're turning to our neighboring country Estonia, named the most digital advanced country in the world by special tech magazine Wired. And joining us now from Tallinn is President Kersti Kaljulaid. Very welcome to Future Democracy Summit.
Hello, how are you doing?
Estonia is by many seen as a role model when it comes to digital development. Why have your focus on digitalization been of such importance for you?
Well, first and foremost, when I talk to Swedes about the Estonian digital miracle, I always tell you that it was Swedish banks in 1994 who started offering online services to Estonians, which they didn't, I understand, at the same time, at least not widely offer in Sweden. And probably because Estonia is not a densely populated country and our income levels are extremely low, so it was very difficult to sustain their operations without using new technologies. And the same, by the way, applied to the Estonian government. We also had very few resources to use to offer public service to our citizens. And the same problem of not densely populated country. Estonia, after all, is the size of Netherlands for 1 million people. And in addition, of course, we didn't really share this view of many developed nations that public sectors should not be the quick followers of the technological developments, because Estonians do not separate our society into public and private, not in labor market and not in our minds, obviously. Maybe that is why.
You have adopted a sort of digital first citizen form of governance. How would you describe it? What are you aiming for?
Well, we are aiming to have a generation of Estonians who have never visited a government office, and we've achieved it. And the moment we knew that we have really actually left analog governance space for the digital governance space was when we had a malfunction of our digital ID. The risk of somebody breaking into our digital ID fell below $50,000, which is the threshold to start informing people and changing things. And nobody here in Estonia said that, oh my God, let's go back to paper. Everybody was like, fix it and let's move on. So we can really say that we are digitally totally transformed society. And what is very important is that actually, if you think about it, Estonian private sector is probably less digitalized than Western European private sectors generally because our labor costs are lower. The only place where Estonia excels is e-governance. And you see, even if we think governments, well, do not matter, but finally they do. The only body or entity who can really transform a nation is a government, because government operates for each and everybody. Inclusivity is, of course, very important. And only if you inclusively bring all your population on the new digital platform, only then, actually, you can transform the society. We have done this.
You are also developing a model to enable citizens to manage their own information or their own data. And what do you want to accomplish with that?
First and foremost, it's very important that the Estonian legal space declares that data belongs to citizens, and the government guarantees the safety of data in its databases. And it's in plural databases, because there is no big brother database. All segments of data about people are in separate formats, and only a person themselves can aggregate everything about themselves. Nobody else is able to do that, absolutely nobody else. Why this is important? Well, many democratic governments promise their citizens safety of data, but they actually do nothing to demonstrate to their citizens that they are really doing it, because it's simply not possible in a cost-effective way. You cannot, if a citizen asks, who read my medical file in a given hospital, you cannot answer that question without, deeply going into analyzing the forensic evidence. But in Estonian digital system, this natural and normal pledge of a democratic government is really kept, because if files are in digital format, then each and every file which has been read has a fingerprint, the digital fingerprint of a concrete person, not an institution, This is very important. Role management is clear here, not an institution. A concrete police officer, a concrete tax board worker, somebody concrete has looked at my data and I can see it. And I have the right to query why. And if I'm not happy, the government punishes people who have been nosing in my data. It took a little bit of education, but people really quickly realized that, no, it's not okay to look into the tax file of your old girlfriend's new boyfriend. I mean, this is something for which you will be held responsible. And this way people learned really quickly that, I mean, data is truly protected and they themselves are the owners of it and only themselves. And that's why, by the way, why people trust our model. It's safer than paper. Is something 200% safe? Well, we know in this world nothing really is, but we can demonstrate that it is safer than on paper. People know more about how government handles their data if it's in digital format. And people have the right in Estonia set by the law to know. And it doesn't come from technology. I want to repeat this. All digital transformation is far more dependent on legal space than technology itself.
We've been discussing a lot about public trust. How do you enable public trust in a time of transformation and with huge digital possibilities? How would you describe the work in Estonia to accomplish that?
Well, there was no transformation, actually, because we had no legacy systems. I don't remember paying taxes offline. I filed my first tax declaration in 1997. And it worked through a bank gateway because digital ID is the development of 4 years later. And frankly speaking, when this became possible, we only saw this as an opportunity. And I mean, it only happened 5 years later when the Estonian government had decided that, I mean, we want to have a relatively cash-free economy if possible. And it was made an obligation of an employer to pay salaries into bank accounts. So, I mean, everybody had to get used to that they don't go to the cashier and get cash anymore, but they get, I mean, money into their bank account 5 years ago. So for us, it was just natural. Okay, this is now the next development. I mean, my salary goes to the bank, I declare my taxes through the bank, and it took 5 minutes. So, I mean, if somebody would have said to me that, you know, it's far safer, or I mean, for some reason better to go to the tax office, I simply wouldn't have listened then. And what was even more important, this is the way how we got people to pay taxes at all, because in Soviet system, you don't have a salary, you don't pay taxes neither. So how do you imagine with a kind of a small, lean government model, you could make people to come to some office, queue for the tax declarations and accept it? That, I mean, government wants money and wants them to queue. I mean, Estonians would not have accepted it. And frankly speaking, it really helped us to get also our numbers on how much we were able to gather the tax really up.
As I said in the beginning, you are by many seen as a role model when it comes to digital development, especially, of course, in the public sector. Even if you had another starting point, what would you say is crucial when it comes to political leadership to enable these changes?
A legal space creation. I mean, you have to create the legal space. I mean, it's many people used to think that Estonians are simply people who don't understand the risks of the digital sphere, but actually we do. And we understand it better than the others because we have legislated a space within the global internet for ourselves, which is protected by digital IDs, which also allow us full encryption of what is passing on in Estonian e-governance system. We have set clear rules and standards, how this data is protected, how it is reported to people, how this data is used. And this is how you build trust. So you have to find one government after another who promotes the legal space development. It has to be permissive of new technologies. Most legal spaces in Europe tend to be restricted. We are always looking for ways and opportunities to make it permissive. For example, now we offer proactive services where AI looks for certain characteristics in the databases and sometimes pays people, let's say, a top up on their pensions. I mean, you have to always move ahead with new technologies and adapt your legal space. Right now, we are in the discussion, how do we need to adapt for AI? Because these experimental services now demand us a second layer of, let's say, an agreement of e-government 2.0. 1.0 was, we do not look and compare the data in different databases which you have given to us. But if you want to find out that there is a retired person who lives alone, they are entitled to a top-up to cover their heating cost in Estonia, then this data is already in the government files. So government can offer the service without application, which it is doing. But this demands different level of agreement. And this way, step by step, always looking what is coming, I mean, in the private sector, because if you think prompted services or automated services is pretty normal in the private sector. Our government moves ahead. And it's for me always a fascinating question, why people in the free world trust all these proactive services, prompting services from private sector and not from their government. Actually, I think governments can explain to people where they actually can provide safer services. In Estonia, it's very easy. If you use digital ID to purchase something from a company which sends you a contract also protected by digital ID, I mean, nobody will send you internet advertisement. So you learn inherently that this is safe mode of operation. And the rest, booking.com, is not as safe as far as, I mean, getting unwanted advertisement thereafter is concerned.
Thank you so much, Ms. President Kaljulaid, for joining us at Future of Democracy Summit. So inspiring. Thank you.
Thank you, and enjoy your day. Thank you. Bye.